Of Kenya has announced the suspension of credit reference bureaus listing loan defaulters who owe $45,000 and below for the period between the 1st of October 2021 to the 30th of September 2022. Now, this follows a directive by President Uhuru Kenyatta 2 weeks ago. Borrowers defaulting on loans of less than $45,000 will not be blacklisted at credit reference bureaus, while those already blacklisted will be dropped. Now, the CRB listing relief is part of a stimulus package to cushion distressed businesses and families from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, which of course hit a consumer demand and forced businesses to shed jobs and cut back their operations. Well, let's now get some reaction on this from one of Kenya's credit reference bureaus. We're now joined by Kamau Kunyiha. He's a regional manager for East and Southern Africa at Creditinfo. Great to have you on the show with us today, sir. Now, this news, it's certainly a relief for medium and small enterprises here in Kenya. They, of course, have been struggling to rebound financially following the pandemic lockdowns. But how has this been received by stakeholders in the financial industry, especially digital lenders, banks, SACCOs, and of course microfinance institutions?
Evening, Uche. Well, as you can imagine, as much as it is a relief for the MSMEs, it's a bit distressing for the lenders, considering that it was either depositors' cash or investors' cash that was used to lend this money to them. So there's a bit of concern or jitters amongst the lenders in terms of what happens now if these people don't pay. However, that said, I don't think the CRB was a factor that was insisting that these people pay. The lenders are in business, so they will continue to enforce whatever measures are available to them to try and collect on outstanding loans that have been issued.
And on that note, what are your thoughts on how this will impact how we're going to see lenders issuing loans going forward? Of course, factoring in the amount of risk they're willing to take on, especially in this current economic environment.
So I think we'll just see a repeat of what happened last year after the first suspension was introduced as last year, where the lenders actually just went through a freeze and decided to hold on lending as they're not able to assess the actual risk of the customers who are applying for facilities. So the likelihood we're going to see is a freeze in lending. And if there's going to be any lending, it's now going to go back to secured lending. So borrowers would have to put up some sort of security if the lenders are to lend any cash to them.
Well, this move then sounds like it's counterproductive because it was meant to sort of cushion SMEs from their debts. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's not going to help. And I think the press release from the central bank also indicated that there's a risk that this is what the outcome would be, that lending would freeze. So there would obviously be a freeze in cash availability for these SMSCs to pump into their business of working capital. So they'll have to find other sources of funding to help them with their working capital requirements.
Now, of course, Creditinfo is one of Kenya's top 3 credit reference bureaus. What are your thoughts then on the pros and cons of the move, given that data that you released showed that the number of loan accounts in arrears rose significantly early this year?
Yes, maybe to explain, the rise in that at the beginning of the year was following the lifting of the suspension from last year. So all that was happening was reflecting the reality on the ground of those that were not paying. By implementing this directive, effectively what it has said is if anyone was performing up to end of September of 2021, effectively, if they do not pay their loans right now, they're not listed negatively. So unfortunately, that's the way the news is being taken. But the reality is that there is a contractual obligation of those people to honor their obligation with the lender that they chose to get their funding from.